Barakata Yahweh, Barakata Yahabushai, Bahasham, Rakahakwadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahabushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start off in Mark chapter 3, verses 24 to 25. And if you look at it in the Bible, it's in red letters, so it's Yahawashi, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, speaking. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And we've seen all throughout history that that's been the case. When a mighty kingdom or empire, country, is divided inside itself amongst its people, it eventually, becomes weak, through decadence, collapses internally, and then collapses externally when foreign powers take it over. We saw it with, the kingdom of Israel, when they split between the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. Hey, they eventually were taken down, and the nation of Israel, which consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, we're in this current state that we're in, at the bottom of the totem pole underneath these other nations. And this is getting ready to happen to the kingdoms of the biblical Edomites, who are known as these so-called white people today. These Americans, the British, Europeans, etc., etc. We can especially see it in the so-called Western world, that they're fracturing and internally divided. And that's what I'll be dealing with in this video, with a clip from Hindustan Times' YouTube channel titled Macron, who's the president of France, go fight alone for Ukraine. Big protest in Paris. NATO, EU flag ripped. So as we can see, there's divisions taking place within France right now. You've got people going against, President Emmanuel Macron's, speculations of sending troops to Ukraine, and just regular French citizens protesting France's, position in NATO. And also, this whole NATO EU system in a wider sense is fractured and divided as well. You've got some of these nations that are pro helping Ukraine, and some of these nations that are against helping Ukraine, and, against, going hard against Russia, because a lot of them, rely on Russian, natural gas and other resources. And a lot of this division is being, stoked by the United States of America, which is, at the head of this NATO EU system. And what's eventually going to happen is America's European allies at some point during World War III are going to turn against her and ally themselves with nations like Russia. And they're all together going to shoot 200 million nuclear missiles onto the United States of America. But let's get into this clip. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And, unfortunately, this clip, they just have music playing in the background, and you'll hear some audio from the protesters. But when people are talking, they don't have any audio subtitles. So for those that are just listening to the video, I'll be reading out, the subtitles of what the people are saying. Paris erupts against Macron's troop deployment in Ukraine pitch. Angry French protesters tear down NATO flags. Says Macron, go to Ukraine alone. Protesters raise slogan. And this is another part of biblical prophecy, not just a kingdom, this kingdom of these Edomites being divided, but also, protests of the people erupting, all across the planet. This is 2 Esdras chapter 9 in the Apocrypha. I'm going to start at verse 1. He answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, which is exactly what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, out on the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this online, are doing by watching the news and reading the scriptures and then filtering the news through the scriptures to let the people know of the prophetic times they're living in. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made, to judge you people for all the wickedness you've been committing on it. Hey, especially you Edomites who have turned this planet into a trap house, and the wicked of our people who are rebellious and don't want to come back to their power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, but want to continue to live like these heathens. Verse 3, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, in diverse places, as it says in Matthew chapter 24, and earthquakes are happening damn near daily all across the planet, and uproars of the people in the world, such as like what we're seeing in that clip with French protesters protesting, Macron's, pitch to send French troops to Ukraine, and just protesting France's involvement in NATO, and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. And if you've got your spiritual eyes and ears open, you can clearly see that the end of this current age of the heathens ruling is manifesting right before us. And we are at the cusp of the ushering in of the new age, the true new age, the true new order, the kingdom of heaven under the children of Israel. Massive protests, uproars of the people erupted in France's capital, Paris, over sending troops to Ukraine pitch. Hundreds of protesters were seen opposing a recent proposal by Emmanuel Macron. Macron, go to Ukraine alone. Slogans were raised by angry protesters. Demonstrators also tore up EU and NATO flags and waved the French tricolors instead. If a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. You've got different NATO countries at odds on how to continue with dealing with this Ukraine and Russia situation. And the house of the Edomites are divided as well. In this case, the house of those French Edomites. You've got pro-NATO and EU, French Edomites, and anti-NATO, and EU French Edomites, and they're at odds with each other. And then the average everyday French, Edomite citizen against those in the government. Look at those yellow vest protests that have been taking place over the last couple of years. Et voilà! Vive la France libre! Protesters reportedly carried banners saying, "We are not willing to die for Ukraine." Let's stop pumping weapons into Kiev and for a peaceful solution in Ukraine. French Revolution over Ukraine. No NATO, no war. We came to say that we do not agree with the escalation of the Ukraine conflict. Lawmakers should demand this issue be debated at the parliament and put to voting, and it as enshrined in the French Constitution, said Florian Philippot, leader of the Patriots Party, who initiated the protest. Long live free France, One of our goals is France's withdrawal from NATO. This alliance is constantly pushing us toward war and looking for enemies, and the EU is following suit. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Let's go to Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 40. And this is dealing with the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar of the Neo-Babylonian Empire had of that statue of a man made of different metals, which represented the heathen kingdoms that would be ruling before the kingdom of heaven. You had the head of gold, which was what the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the arms and breasts of silver, which was the Medo-Persians, the belly and thighs of brass, the Grecian kingdoms, who were, Edomites, the legs of iron, the ancient pagan Roman Empire, which was also under the Edomites, and those feet and toes mixed with iron and miry clay. This current system we're under. This is Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, the ancient pagan Roman Empire, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And like those other kingdoms, the ancient pagan Roman Empire, fractured and fell. You had the western half, fall, and then it continued for about another 1,000 years with the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, which was ruled by the Israelites who took over. And then around the mid 1300s, going into the 1400s, what did you have? The Renaissance, the rebirth, when the Edomites came back into power and had all their different, nations and colonization lead up to this current final system. Those iron toes mixed with miry clay, the NATO EU system, which the US is a part of and at the head of. Verse 41, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And that part of potter's clay and part of iron, can go into the part of clay being the EU or the European Union, which is the economic half of the system, which, is definitely weaker than the part of iron, which is the military aspect, the NATO system, which some nations that are in NATO aren't in the EU and vice versa. And then it can also go into the nations that are more, stronger militarily and economically than others. You've got something called the pigs, which are the weaker military and economic powers. And the pigs stand for Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. While you've got the stronger parts like France, Germany, Britain, and the United States of America. But as it says, the kingdom shall be divided. And like I've been going into throughout the video, this whole system is divided. You've got those that are pro, Ukraine and going against Russia, and those that are anti going against Ukraine and Russia. And there's divisions between a lot of these nations, these European nations and the US, because they're sick of being the lapdog of the United States of America and feeling the blowback whenever the US has a economic or military assault on another country, such as Russia, which a lot of these European nations have lucrative economic ties with that are being fractured. But there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And it's eventually going to be completely broken and go down. But as this statement just said, no NATO, no war, long live free France. One of our goals is France's withdrawal from NATO. Thou sawest the kingdom part of iron, and part of clay. The kingdom shall be divided. This alliance is constantly pushing us towards war, at the behest of the United States of America, and looking for enemies, and the EU is following suit. February 26, Emmanuel Macron hinted at possible NATO troop deployment in Ukraine.
Il n'y a pas de consensus aujourd'hui pour envoyer de
There is no
manière
consensus today to
officielle,
send ground
assumée
troops in an
et
official,
endossée des
endorsed,
troupes au
and
sol,
sanctioned manner.
mais en dynamique, rien ne doit
But in
être
dynamic terms,
exclu.
nothing should be ruled out.
Nous
We will
ferons
do
tout ce qu'il faut
whatever
pour
it
que la
takes
Russie
to
ne
ensure
puisse pas
that
gagner cette
Russia
guerre.
cannot win this war. In response, Vladimir Putin issued a nuclear war ultimatum to the West. Nuclear war is also part of biblical prophecy, as is World War III. Putin said that there was a genuine risk of nuclear war if the West sends troops. The Russian president stated that Moscow had weapons to strike targets in the West.
И что все они
Everything that they, the West, come up with, what they're scaring the whole world with,
весь мир, что
creates
все
the
это
real threat of a conflict with
реально
the use of
грозит
nuclear weapons,
конфликтом
and
с
thus the
использованием
destruction
ядерного
of
оружия, а значит
civilization.
уничтожением цивилизации. Тоже есть оружие, да знают об
We have
этом.
weapons
Сейчас, как я
too.
сказал,
They should
тоже есть
eventually
оружие,
realize
которое
that we
может
also
поражать
have
цели на
weapons
их
that can
территории.
hit targets on their territory. And now Macron is facing revolt by his own people over his Ukraine stand. If a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Uproars of the people in the world, threats of nuclear destruction. That's it with this clip. Now let's get back to these precepts. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 12. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming upon us and will go nuclear. And the main combatants is going to be the U.S. and Russia. And at some point during World War III, America's own European allies are going to turn against her and ally themselves with Russia to altogether shoot those nukes onto the U.S. And France has, I believe, around 290 nuclear weapons. But this is Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, the 10 horns referring to the EU or European Union, beginning with the first 10 common markets of the EU, back when it was known as the European Economic Community. And the beast is NATO, and France is both a member of the EU as well as NATO. These shall hate the whore being the United States of America that rides upon the beast, that woman at the beginning of this chapter known as Mystery, Babylon, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, nuclear fire. Those 200 million nuclear missiles hitting the U.S. and turning it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then that desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time.